Hello, and welcome to Masters with Masters. I'm Ed Hoffman, the NASA Chief Knowledge Officer, and this week we're at the Kennedy Space Center sharing some of the stories of change and transformation taking place at the Kennedy location. These sessions bring together practitioners, professionals, and leaders to share their knowledge and to promote reflection on the key issues and challenges that we face as an organization. And today we're focusing on young professional perspectives, motivations, challenges, and how we work towards the future that they will be taking over. And today we have two outstanding young professionals they've worked with for the last few years. We have here in the location Anne Caraccio of the Kennedy Space Center. Anne is a chemical engineer who formally joined NASA in February 2011, graduating from our graduate co-op education program. And she's currently working on the logistics reduction and repurposing trash and supply gas within the advanced exploration system program activities. And we also have on location in Moscow, Phillip Harris. Philip is an international operations engineer at our Johnson Space Center, and he works with the American and international partnering for the flight and control activities for the International Space Station, and he works at both the Moscow Russian Mission Control Center for NASA, as well as in Houston for the Mission Control Center at JSC. And I appreciate both of you being with us and look forward to getting some of your thoughts. I guess I'll start with you, Philip. You've been out at Moscow this week supporting the launch that took place to the International Space Station. Can you give us a status or an update of how are things going?
Yeah, it's been a really busy week here in Moscow. Very early Wednesday morning, we had the docking of Soyuz 35S to bring 3 new crew members to the space station. Everything went great, and they're just continuing on with their daily activities, so everything is going quite well right now. Very
good. So one of the things I'd like to maybe start with is getting started in a career. And so, and I've known you for a couple of years. Maybe you can share with us, how did you get involved with NASA? And how did you get to this, the point in terms of the work that you're doing?
All right, well, I had to go back and watch the video from the previous Masters with Masters because I was curious. It's been a few years, and I had to look back and laugh because I was so nervous, and I think it was my 10th week, and although it was several years ago now, which flew by, a lot of what I said then is still the same today. I came on board with NASA after graduating from Manhattan College with an undergrad in chemie, and I was just looking for an internship, and I went to a career fair, and I really thought NASA was not going to want to bother with me. I've said this before, when I was little, I used to think NASA people were harbored on a planet or a mountain somewhere and sent to the NASA Space Centers just to work for space travel. And I applied for an internship and a co-op opportunity, and HR called me up and said, you can only do one. And I didn't know what a co-op was because my school didn't have a co-op program. And I was trying to figure out what the difference was, and they explained co-ops have to repeat rotations, and it's usually one of the ways you can come back as a full-time employee. So doing that and extending my graduation really changed my life forever because I had this gut feeling that I was going to work for NASA for the rest of my life. And I came on as a co-op with Dr. Martha Williams, and she was a passionate inventor, and her excitement got me excited. And I started to read about the history of NASA and spaceflight, and I just fell in love with all of these stories and such culture that was going on. And I was going to Air and Space Museums, and I actually knew what the planes meant and the rockets meant now. I never knew any of this before. And then I saw my first shuttle launch, and the bug just bit me, and I've been, passionate and excited about this agency ever since, and luckily, it has not died down yet. So.
Yeah. So it's a co-op program, the education programs to pull in, and then good mentoring with Dr. Williams and those opportunities. Let me turn to you, Philip. How did you get started, and how did you, such a young age, you're in Moscow supporting the International Space Station. How did you get started? How did you get here?
Yeah, similar to Annie, I came in via the NASA co-op program. I actually was digging through a few things a couple of months ago and came across an article that was written in my local town's newspaper about me when I graduated from high school. And there's a one line in there that says, Philip hopes to work for NASA one day. And it was always a dream. I have many teachers and my parents that can attest to that, especially with all the show and tells I did of all my cool space models that I had for my Lego sets. But I've always wanted to work here. And is what happened. It was quite interesting. I actually didn't know that NASA even had a co-op program. Like any of my school, also was just getting started with their co-op and intern program for the engineering department. And I was in Fargo, North Dakota, of all places, for something completely unrelated, a theater competition that I was a technical staff member for. And on my way home at like 6 in the morning in the Fargo airport, I ran into one of our test pilots out at the Dryden Flight Research Center. Completely accidental, didn't even know that anyone would be there, and just saw a NASA logo, walked up to him, and he told me about the co-op program. And that's when I applied and actually got the offer on my birthday, 2006, to come join the agency as a co-op out at Dryden. And then I later transferred to the Johnson Space Center that same year, and I've been there ever since. To get to where I am in the international group, I worked in one of my co-op tours in this group, and then definitely wanted to try and make it into my full-time position, which ended up happening in 2012.
And so a common theme for both in terms of the co-op, as a matter of fact, for all of us, I started NASA about 30 years ago, and also in the graduate co-op program. And for me, when I started, one of the things that amazed me, that I've always told people, is the ability to take on all kinds of challenging assignments, and really have a lot of authority to do that, because there's always been a theme of not having enough people. So as a young person, you can get involved in some neat work. Can you share, what are some of the challenges that you faced in terms of getting started at NASA? You know, it could be technical, or it could be just you know, getting acclimated. What are some of the key challenges, and how have you gone about handling those? Start with you, Annie.
Okay. Well, so most of the time I work in a lab out here doing research and technology development, and a lot of times you have to make people be comfortable with doing things that are different. That's sort of the way the world works with technology development. It's not been done before, and getting people to do things that they're not used to doing is a challenge enough, and then having them be willing to take those risks is a whole other ball game. And some days it does feel like you're trying to drive into a brick wall, and you really do feel stuck. And if you, in your gut, feel that what you're doing is right, and you have the right passion, and you make it through that brick wall, I mean, you might have a broken car, but you can fix it later, and then you'll be on that road that's less traveled to make those technology breakthroughs. And I think for me, it's just working really hard and having enthusiasm, and no one can really take that away from you except for you. So you just have to keep going.
One of the things that, going back to my past when I got started, I felt as a young person I was being encouraged to be patient and to kind of wait, and you know, that there are different challenges of being young in an organization that had such a storied history. I had a individual who once I asked, I said, so how long do I have to be patient? And he seriously told me, well, if you wait 10 years, then everything will make sense. And I was in my 20s, and at that point, waiting 10 years was like eternity. Are there any unique challenges of being young at a place like NASA?
Absolutely. That's one of the hardest challenges. When I first came down here, it was right when thousands of contractors were being laid off, when the Constellation program was canceled, when Shuttle was announced that it was ending, and there wasn't a clear future. And here I was all excited to come work here, and people were upset here. I mean, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of uncertainty, and the greatest thing about NASA that I've found is the people are just so passionate and have good attitudes and will get through anything. They're very resilient, and I clung on to those people, you know, that had that positive attitude, and I'm glad that they made it through, because it helped me make it through. A lot of young professionals weren't staying. You know, they were coming in, being disgruntled, and leaving, and I'm glad I stuck it through, because I, like them, had faith in NASA. And another thing, well, do you want to let Philip talk at all? I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm talking.
Go, tell us your other thing, and then we'll go to
So Rob Mueller mentioned it yesterday, actually, I was watching this streaming video, and he mentioned that during the Apollo era, there were the average year of an engineer out here was 28. And most of the people out here probably have kids that age, or maybe, give or take, maybe a little younger. And maybe it terrifies them that we're the same age as their kids. I'm not sure what it is, but we're a different culture. And a lot of times I hear we need to keep the critical skills. We need to keep the critical skills. And at what point does the young professional become a critical skill? Because I think that if we don't invest or bring on more young people, we're going to lose the future of this place. And that's definitely something we're thinking about.
Right. So now we'll let Philip. Go ahead, Philip. What challenges have you run into, Philip? And again, it could be on the work, the technical, or it could be being young professional. What have you experienced that you deal with, and how do you handle the challenges?
Yeah, there's been several challenges, and similar to Annie, when I came in full-time, shuttle was winding down, JSC was getting prepared to do our final support for the last shuttle mission, and that was causing a lot of change in how we do things at JSC and what the future was. And so there was a lot of opinions and going back and forth, and it's just, like Annie, I found people that are so passionate about NASA and know that no matter where we're going, we're going to get somewhere that is amazing, just like we have in the past. It might be a little murky, but that will come through at some point. I think one of the biggest challenges is, again, being young and just being able to get in to the group and understand what's going on, because there's just so much knowledge at NASA across everything we do. I mean, look at the amount of stuff we cover across our different field centers. It runs the gamut from everything, aerospace research to deep space research and everything in between, human exploration. And being able to connect with our peers, our colleagues who are both early in their career, mid in their career, and in the late part of their career is so important so that we can share that knowledge. And I think that is the one struggle that I had early on, is finding out how to do that and not just be perceived as, oh, you're coming in and you want to change everything, but wanting to be perceived as, no, I want to learn from you and what you've done and how you've done it, and maybe see what ways we can do it better and work with you together to ensure that NASA has an amazing future like we all expect it to.
Can you say, you mentioned a couple of things that are important coming on, and trying to improve things, trying to change is a natural way of improving an organization, but also learning and having access to people. Can you talk a little bit more about how have you approached that? How do you try to bring to this organization the fact that you want to improve it, you want to change it, but you're also looking to have access to learn?
I think the biggest point and the hardest wall to get over was that wall of, I don't want to come in and change it right now. I want to learn more about it. And once you break through that barrier of trying to understand how things work and have worked in the past, it really opens up a lot of opportunities. And so one thing that I've definitely done is not be afraid to go up to anybody, regardless of what their title is or where they work, even if they work in a different directorate than me. Just being willing to go up and talk to them and say, hey, I'm Philip, and this is what I do. I want to know what you do at NASA to make us a successful organization. And that has helped a lot. And I've learned a lot too, and been able to bring in things from other directorates into my own directorate that helped out. Sometimes one directorate is developing something that would meet a need of another, but since the other directorate doesn't know anything about that, they can't use it. And just by talking to people and not being afraid to go ask somebody, that's really helped, and that's what I do to break through that barrier.
Yeah, I think I've seen both of you do that in the times I've known you. I think it's an important point, because one of the things that I've always valued about NASA, it is a place where you can talk to anybody. And I remember similarly early in my career, I was working at Goddard at the very beginning, and I got a call one day from the center director, who is Jack Townsend. And when he said, "This is Jack Townsend," I said, "No, it's not Jack Townsend. Why would the center director call me?" And he actually had to convince me that he was calling. And then I realized when I got off, and he just wanted to talk to me about, he said he really liked the work that I had done, and he just wanted to give me a call and get some feedback. And I remember when I got off the phone, my first reaction is, how stupid would I be to tell him that I didn't believe it was him? But then the second reaction is, wow, what an organization where you can have the person who runs the place who can feel, would call and speak to everybody. So I think, we're able to talk to all kinds of folks in science and engineering and leadership and in the communities, and that's one of the key things I think you've hit on. Another thing that Andy, you were talking about, which also struck me, is the fact that when you came on board, there was a lot of challenges. You know, Constellation was canceled and workforce being cut because of shuttle. And similarly, again, when I came on board, we dealt with the first Challenger. And I remember there was a lot of questions. And we were also going through a period of, in the early 80s, it was our workforce was aging. And there was questions about the future mission. And I heard a lot of people talking about, is there going to be a NASA? And so there's maybe a lot of similar, consistency there from the standpoint of when you're an organization that does really big programs that go over decades, when they do end, you have to deal with how do you build that up again. Let me segue maybe into the current work that you both do in terms of the projects that you're working on. And we'll start with you. What is it that you're working on today at Kennedy? What's the project activities?
So I currently support advanced exploration system project called Logistics Reduction and Repurposing, which you said. And under that, there's a waste and volume reduction focus called trash to supply gas, and they're looking at several different technologies of converting human waste from space into useful commodities like water and oxygen for human support, as well as methane for fuels. There was a study on an ascent vehicle that used methane. And specifically, I'm looking at catalytic cracking of some of the tars that are formed from our trash. Most of the trash is like the astronauts' food packaging, their human waste, their food, and it's a lot of stuff that's rather hard to break down when you have it in one single unit and trying to create lots of useful things out of it. So.
Your passion always comes through. Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of autonomy to do what you're doing, and also a chance to maybe to work with good people. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely. I work with a very diverse team, and that's not the only project I work on. I work on another project, and both are just diverse teams of really great, smart people. And it's been a lot of fun to learn and grow with them, especially with me being new out here. Most of them have been here for quite a while, and it's fun to learn from them, and I make mistakes, and they definitely let me know when it's wrong, but they're trying to make me a better engineer and person out here, so I really appreciate that.
You spent a little bit of time in SwampWorks too, is that, or?
Well, the work for trash to gas is considered ISRU, where you're basically trying to sustain life for deep space missions or when you're living on another planet. And so we're actually in a different lab in the O&C building, but it's essentially one big family of ISRU. So.
Okay. It's one of the questions I know I'll get from people is how do you get good assignments? Is it because you're seeking them out, or is it because you have a management that's looking to get you? I mean, how is it that you're so busy and you're involved in this kind of work? What advice can you give on that, getting good work?
I think if you just work really hard with whatever it is that you have, do the best you can with what you have, good work will come to you. The person that used to lead the project has since relocated from KSC, but he came and asked me one day when I was done with my 6-month accelerated training project, if I would want to work on this project with him, and he told me about it, and I thought it was the coolest project ever because of all the awesome spin-offs for Earth as well. And so I guess just work really hard, and it'll just happen.
Yeah, no, there's actually a theme, because in the discussions we've had this week with Bob Gabanin, with Bob Seek, and with Ed Mangan, with really everyone, they've talked about the fact that how they got where they were is typically they had individuals who said, I want you to work this assignment. And they didn't really have more background on that, but they went into the different areas, and so it followed through, doing good work and getting the opportunity, and then going to that area. Philip, what about you? What is it that you're working on today, and what's your key assignment, and what can you tell us about your work?
Well, right now in Moscow, my main job is to work in the Mission Control Center here, just to support and basically be the go-between between the United States and Russia. So if there's any questions on either side, I kind of translate it into something the other team will understand and get that information relayed to the correct people. Back in Houston, though, my major project is actually a website that I'm hoping most people in the room are familiar with, and if you're not, I'm hoping you'll go visit it after this session. But it's International Space Station Live, which was a small project that started just about 6 months before I came to NASA full-time. And it's a project that's a web application, it's a phone application that streams live information from the space station, what the astronauts are doing, the telemetry data that we get down from the different sensors and effectors and that kind of thing on station. And that had just started when I got to JSC, and we're still rolling through it today. I was actually about a month into working full-time and just got pulled into a meeting someday, and they were like, we have this extra work, and we were wondering if you were interested because we know you're a computer science student, and just want to see what you can do with it. And so I ended up developing one of the critical aspects of it for the astronaut timeline data, and ever since got put on that project as one of the project managers on the project management team and a technical lead for that particular aspect of it. And so that's the big thing I do right now, is support that project, and we're trying to get even more information in about what we do on Space Station every day, get more payload information in so that we can see all the amazing science that's going on and all the different advances we're making in so many different fields. And so that's my main project at JSC, and then here in, like I said, in Moscow, just interacting with all the teams and making sure that everyone has the information they need to keep the space station flying another day.
Okay, so the site is International Space Station Live, right?
Yep, you can visit it at spacestationlive.nasa.gov.
Okay, and what's it like working with our Russian partners, and what have you learned from working with the Russians that's different from working with Johnson, from working with NASA?
Well, working with the Russians is a really unique experience. It brings to light a lot of different cultural differences and just ways of doing things that are different. Both the United States and Russia have amazing legacies in their space programs and have developed certain ways of doing things that are different yet work extremely well for both communities. The biggest thing here is twofold, I think. The first one is cultural. Coming from the United States team, when I interact with other flight controllers in the States, I automatically know how to interact with them because I, like them, am from the same place, and we share common values and common cultural themes, and so it's pretty easy. But when you come to Russia, you have to start to understand and really make an effort to understand their culture. And it's little tiny things like don't shake hands across a doorway because that will bring you bad luck and you might quarrel in the future. And so you have to know that and show that you're making an effort to kind of build some rapport with your colleagues. And then the other thing is just being able to understand why they chose to do the things they do. The biggest example I have is for planning. When we try and plan out the schedule of the astronauts on space station, in the States we have a completely electronic system that does this and keeps track of it for us. And in Russia, once you get within 3 days of that plan actually occurring, they print it out on a massive piece of paper that's 6-7 feet long, up to 9 feet long if it's a docking day or something dynamic's going on board, and they hand write every single change to the plan during those 3 days on that piece of paper. And so it's an extremely different way of doing things. Works really well, but it's a different way of doing things, and being able to explain that to the US team is a critical skill when you're working over in Moscow or with any of our other colleagues.
Very interesting. Yeah, great opportunity. We have an audience here at Kennedy, and so I'll ask shortly to see if there are any questions from the crowd. I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is, so Philip is based out of Houston, typically when you're at NASA, and obviously Annie's here at Kennedy. How did you start working together? Or when did you, is it through some of the different training programs, or, because you don't formally work together, but I guess, how did you get networked?
Well, Andy and I first met, if you don't mind, Andy, I'll take the...
Go for it.
I'll respond. But we first met actually at the forum hosted by APPEL that she mentioned earlier back in 2011. And before that, we had also talked to each other through an organization that we all helped start at NASA in the co-op program, which is now called PAXI. and it's an organization designed to connect the co-op programs across the centers and just get everyone talking. And so that's when we first met, and we stayed in touch ever since, and we also are members of a couple of different committees for the International Astronautical Federation, and so we work with them as well and see each other and work on those committees together too.
And so what are you working on in terms of the International Federation activities? Anything particular there, or?
So the Young Professionals Committee hosts the virtual forums every year, which are a great opportunity for young professionals to present the work they're doing in their various fields. We have 5 different forums, and it doesn't require them to travel to the IAC. So for example, the IAC can be around the world. It can be in Italy, it can be in China, it can be in Canada, and it's hard for a young professional to travel. So we arrange these forums, much like today, me being linked in here. It's a very similar experience for young professionals to present their work.
Very good. Sounds like it's a good meeting ground and something that others may be interested in getting involved with. We have a question here from the audience, so I'll go to the question.
Hi, my name is Callie Burke. I'm with the Launch Services Program here at Kennedy. As a young professional, have there been any culture changes you guys have tried to work to bring to the greater NASA community? And what level of success or failure have you had with those?
Well, here at Kennedy, there have been a lot of, this was talked about yesterday too, there was a lot of grassroots movements that normally have been started as employee resource groups. We have Spaceport Innovators out here, which tries to bring innovative thought and collaboration across the center. We have Launching Leaders, which is a group that was formed for emerging professionals or young professionals out here to try and develop yourselves as leaders of tomorrow, or to just cross-network with the young people out here, or anyone that's new out here, because it's such a big place spread over so many acres of land, and there's not that many of us that know who's new and who's not new. And then you also have things like Rocket U and the Swamp Works. I mean, that's just been really great to attract and inspire young people out here, new people out here, people that want NASA to blossom for a forever future. And one of the things with Launching Leaders is there's actually a monthly or bi-monthly telecon where we meet with all of the other young professional groups across all the other centers, and we just sort of get together and talk and network and say, what's going on over there? What cool events have you had there? What are your challenges this month? You know, is there anything going on for you? And it's a way for all these young voices to sort of stay connected. And not all of us know who we are, but it's nice to know that some people have the same challenges as we do over here.
Philip, anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Yeah, you know, and there's some other things that we've also done in addition to what Annie's talked about. JSC is participating in the organizations to try and keep the young professionals connected across the agency. But more locally at JSC, the co-ops every year attempt to organize an event that's designed not only for co-ops, but it's also designed for young professionals in their first couple of years at the agency. And it's an afternoon picnic with senior leaders at our center. And so they invite everyone there. It's fully organized by the young professional community, and just a nice afternoon to kind of get to know everybody and break down those barriers between the young professional and the mid and late career professionals who may not have another opportunity to interact on such an informal and regular basis.
Yeah, so it's a common theme is accessing people and networks and getting together. Very important. I think we have another question.
Hi, I'm Tracy Wietrich. I'm the HR director here at Kennedy. Hey, Annie, how are you doing? Question I have for both of you is, if you were in a position where you were asked to advise supervisors, how do they grow enthusiasm, cultivate talent, give people the right skills? How would you advise them to work with the people that are coming after you as your successors in the co-op and student and recent graduate programs?
Well, one thing that recently happened to me, and this isn't a supervisor level, but I had a reverse shadow done on me with the center director, and that was a lot of fun. We both learned a lot, and I think it was a good way to have him see what I see on a day-to-day basis, do what I do on a day-to-day basis, feel my enthusiasm, take him out of his regular day-to-day meetings and paperwork and budget issues, and remind them that there is this workforce out here that is super excited to be here, and maybe see the disconnect, see what we're not hearing. If supervisors can put themselves in our shoes and say, hey, they're actually not hearing this information, or they need this is the missing piece, that could help a little bit. And with the Launching Leaders group, we're going to try and start that up here at Kennedy to have a reverse mentoring, even if it's just for a few hours, even if it's just for lunch. It's still breaking that barrier down between the people at the bottom of the totem pole and the supervisors. And people have been very open to it. I think in the past, the traditional NASA way was not as adept to that. But nowadays, communication is so easy, and it's just like, why not? Why aren't we doing this? So I think that would be good.
Yeah, I like that reverse shadowing. That's real interesting. Philip, anything that you would add? What advice would you give?
If I was to give advice to a supervisor, I'd say the biggest thing is to have regular one-on-ones with all your staff members, not just your young professionals, but all your staff members, and make them more than just, I need a status on your project. Really make them a time to get to know your employee, even if it's only a 30-minute conversation every other week. Make that one of the biggest priorities that you have during your work week. And that will really help you to understand, where they want to go, where their passion comes from, and be able to bolster that in ways that you may not get if you're just, getting status updates all the time. And so it's building that relationship with your employees that I think is so critical to being able to advance them where they want to go, and also get NASA even farther down this road of exploration.
Yeah, a lot of good thoughts there. And again, we have another question.
This is Steve Payne with Launch Complex Operations. For those of us trying to grow the new critical skills, what is the best way to get to the younger generation of engineers who have come out here to come up to speed? How do you learn fastest? What's the best exposure we can give you to bring you up to speed to take over?
And I learn, the way I do is I learn by doing it. I can't read from a book and expect to know it, or be able to know that I turn this widget to do that. So I'd say, from my experience, it's bringing us in and getting us involved right away, and taking us along with you to see how you do that on a day-to-day basis, instead of just giving us the books to read, because we won't absorb it as much, and it'll be a lot faster if we can see it in action.
I totally agree with that. I learn by doing, and when I have a project that I have to do, it carries so much more weight, and I'm so cautious about it being right the first time, and it never is, right? I make tons of mistakes, but knowing that this has my name on it, or people are watching this, and if I mess this up, it's going to be because of me, that helps me learn quickly. And I will read the manuals if I have to, but just having that ownership of it really brings me up to speed very quickly.
Yeah, so a consistent message of the hands-on work and the ability to do is the best way to learn, sounds like. One of the things that's always been important is the role of mentoring. That was one of the things that I certainly was benefited from throughout my career. And I was interested in terms of the role of mentoring, for each of you. Do you have mentors right now, and how do you get mentors, and what do they do for you? Annie?
So for me, when I started as a full-time employee, I was in the 6-month program, and I was assigned a mentor. And on a day-to-day basis, you might think she's introverted, but when she was assigned as my mentor, she did her job to a T and then some, and she made sure that I had all the tools available. She really made sure I was making the right contacts for who I would use in the future, and she didn't instill any of her fears or beliefs or judgments about management or politics or anything, which is really important for a young professional, because they're basically a clean slate, and if you're instilling your beliefs and your frustrations on them, that's unfair to them. They should figure that out for themselves. And along the way, I've just met people. One time I was in an office waiting for a meeting, and I saw a female engineer, and I'd seen her at a lot of meetings, and she was humble and confident and strong. And I walked up to her and I said, hey, can we have lunch sometime? I really want to hear your story and get to know you. And she was like, sure, what's your name? And she's since retired, but throughout her time here, she's just been a great mentor. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it, is just go up and talk to people. They're willing to talk to you and they're waiting to talk to you. But if you're going to sit around and wait for a mentor, you're going to be waiting a long time. You really should be the proactive one about it. There's so many good ones out here. Just go and do it.
Yeah, so if somebody you want to talk to, just go up and talk and ask. What is it that you get from the mentor? Is it a sense of how to be successful here? Is it advice on new work? Is it confidence? What are the benefits you've gotten from the mentors that you've had?
For me, I've noticed over the past few years, I've been drawn to strong, confident women out here. And they've taught me confidence. And just seeing someone so put together and so knowledge-worthy, but knowing that they've been where you are and they've made mistakes too, and them being open and honest with you, just sort of puts your mind at ease. And you're like, okay, I can do this. So having them encourage you and just give you their lessons and mistakes that they've made can really make your world different.
Right. Somebody you can identify with, who's been there and who gives that sense of confidence in terms of things. What about you, Philip? Do you have a mentor? Do you have mentors? How do you go get them, and how do you use them?
Yeah, I definitely do have mentors, and I think it's important to have more than one. One's great, and there's never a limit to how many mentors you can have. I have both formal and informal ones. So at JSC, we have a program that's called YODA. That's a formal mentoring program that lasts for a year. And so I have a mentor through that who's been helping me a lot with just identifying, JSC and what I want to do and how to move about inside the JSC system. And that's great, and that's really helpful since that's the primary center that I work at. He's been also talking with me about other things too, work-life balance and other things that are related to work but not directly associated with the work that I do. And then I also have a lot of great informal mentors who I've met in some conference somewhere or a training class. That's where I meet a lot of them, actually, is just different conferences like the Project Management Conference that NASA hosts or at the IAF conference every year. And those mentors are also really great because they're usually from either private sector or other areas or different centers. And every center at NASA and private industry has a different opinion on everything. And so being able to get that and bounce my ideas off them to where I might want to go and where they've been and what they've learned for in their breadth of experience has been extremely helpful. And it's just, I use them a lot to talk about where I want to go with work and my next career opportunity. And so I recommend, just like Annie said too, going out and not being afraid to go up and introduce yourself to somebody, even if you have no idea who they are. And one great thing to do is if you're at a location, a conference or something, and they offer like a speed networking activity, I've gotten some really great advice from speed networking, talking with somebody at a table for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so just looking at different opportunities. What about you mentoring others? Are there people that you mentor or approach the same thing?
And I've noticed, like, over the past probably 6 to 8 months, there have been more people coming up to ask who I am and what I do and how I got to where I am. I'm noticing co-ops are starting to do that, that are interested in doing work similar to what I do today. And so I try and help them and provide tips on how I made it through the program and where I got to. So it's starting, and I'm starting to pay back some of the excellent benefits that I got from mentoring, and will continue to get through it in my career.
Very good. Anyone you're mentoring, or?
I think I do it without realizing I'm doing it. Outside of work, I have my friends and I here, we have a Girl Scout troop, grades 7 through 12, and we don't realize it, but having the NASA logo as your job, having been through engineering, and being young and being a female, you can really attract and inspire a lot of young, especially females and students, just by who you are and where you work. And I think I realized it without I don't realize it because I'll get emails or thank you letters saying, you know, thank you for inspiring me, or asking me about advice, and I just do it because it feels right. And so I guess that's considered mentoring, and I just don't realize it until I take a step back and say, oh, okay, this is mentoring, and it's an awesome feeling, and it's great to be there as a tool for people.
Right, absolutely. Looking at the future, one of the things that I've seen in terms of my career is that people who are very successful here typically they're passionate about what they're doing. They have a lot of curiosity. They're interested in what's going on, and they have this kind of a desire usually to go towards a direction or towards a vision. What motivates both of you? What is it that why are you happy to be at NASA? What creates your excitement? What is it about the work that is so motivating for you?
Well, just from the work that I do, like the Trash to Gas project, knowing that there's so many spin-offs for Earth, as well as when we're somewhere in deep space or on another planet or on a long-duration mission, knowing that maybe this technology can convert your trash into their fuel or water or oxygen, I think that is such motivation. Maybe it won't be exactly what I'm working on, but just knowing that it might be out there one day turns a sci-fi movie into reality for me. And I also am very motivated by this asteroid mission. And if you think about it, for me, I think it's perfect. You're using a heavy lift vehicle going beyond low Earth orbit, capturing an asteroid, bringing it back to a Lagrange point, sending astronauts to process this asteroid. It's got everything in this package. And there's a lot of non-believers out there, but there's always been non-believers with NASA. And I think that we can do it. And just seeing and hearing that mission and that concrete something is definitely high motivation for me.
Right, so part of it is to be involved in work that you can see is going to have a practical application or a benefit at a certain point in time. Right. Right. What about you, Philip? What motivates you? What gets you excited about what you're doing?
Yeah, and I had an experience when I was coming back from Russia on my last tour back to Moscow. I had taken some personal time just to kind of take a break from the operation scene before going right back into it. And I ran into a family on this vacation, and we became good friends. And they had 2 small children around the ages of 5 and 7. And when I told them I worked at NASA, their eyes just went absolutely big, and they were super excited, and they're like, "You're an astronaut?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not an astronaut, but I work with them." And they were just super excited and were asking me a bazillion questions and how they could work at NASA one day, and what do we do, and do we really have a space station with people, floating around doing science? And that's what gets me excited, is when I go out and I see that people get excited on the work that I'm doing on space station to keep it operating every day, and know that people are still really excited about the work that we do at NASA, the work we're going to be doing, what our plans are, even in the midst of changing budget situations and changing environments and how we have to go in programs and not being sure on a few things. But everyone knows that we're going to be doing something cool, and seeing the children of today get super excited about it still, just as I was excited about it when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, is what keeps me going, because they are one day going to be the young professionals coming in and sitting like this telling me about how I don't understand necessarily everything that they're thinking and where we need to go. And so I pay attention to that and realize that there are still great adventures to come, and they will probably be the ones that are going to that asteroid as astronauts and stuff like that.
Yeah. What is the one of the things you point to is the challenge of the ambiguity, and part of the nature of an organization like NASA, which is doing cutting-edge things, which are doing futuristic things, which are doing things that would have doubters and skeptics, is that there's an ambiguity there that people have to create a clarity. What's your personal visions, for the future, for yourself, but also for NASA? Where would you like to see it in 10 years, 20 years? Do you have a personal vision, Philip?
I do. I think that within the next 20, 30 years, that we're going to be exploring other worlds farther than the moon, and I'm really excited for that. I also think that that's not going to happen without a large international base. Because the reality is that exploration doesn't necessarily come cheap, and it's great to get our international partners involved because we're one planet, and so we might as well explore the world together and also explore space and the outer reaches together. So I think in the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to see international crews going out to other worlds or exploring other aspects of our solar system that we can't even imagine today. And it's going to be this large international basis and all of us coming together to make that happen.
So human exploration through an international collaboration, which probably also explains your involvement in the International Federation and the different communities. Annie, what about your personal vision?
So I have to piggyback off of a lot of what you said. I see Kennedy being this bustling spaceport where we have private industry, government industry. It's the only way will really be sustainable, and I think we've heard that over and over again. And if we have all this activity going on out here, it's just going to bring in this global partnership of we need to go into space together. If it was not that hard, then we would be doing it by now, and we definitely need to unite and realize that and just, come together and travel beyond the moon and Mars. And I definitely know that we will be habitating other places and on other vehicles, living like Star Trek, but it's going to be a while, and we need to keep up the passion. And as we run out of resources here, we definitely need to get people's attention, and maybe that'll also booster some support for space travel from the general public.
What role do both of you see yourselves playing in terms of that vision? Generally, how do you want to contribute to that?
I don't know where I'll be in 10 years, but I really love the work that I do right now in terms of how do we live off the land and how do we be sustainable on another planet? Because at the end of the day, if that works out, that's awesome. And if it doesn't completely work out, at least we are still working on making this fragile planet of ours sustainable. And both of those drives keep me going. So I hope to be able to support that for a long time. I'm going to stay technical for a while. I have no plans for anything but technical right now.
Right. So the engineering, the technical work, the research, and fine-tuning that. What about you, Philip?
And I hope to continue along with my international involvement that I'm starting here in the operations world, and I hope to someday be working to help create and craft those agreements that NASA develops with hundreds of countries around the world on different collaboration efforts, be it the space station like we have now, or small science efforts or satellites. I want to be the one that's there helping them figure out how they can best work with us and how we can work with them to make both of us have a successful mission.
And starting to come towards the close, what advice do you have for young professionals, young people, in terms of space, in terms of NASA, in terms of a career? What would you, from your experiences at this point, what would you say are some of the key lessons that you would want to share, to others?
I would say try not to let the necessary day-to-day evils get to you or frustrate you. Try and always keep the big picture in focus. Always try and remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe you have this little task that's not working out, or you feel so frustrated that you want to give up. Just take a step back and say, why am I doing this again? And hopefully you can get that big picture back and focus and remember the passion that comes along with that. Most of the people out here have relocated from where they grew up, everything they knew, to come and work at these space centers. So you must have come here for some reason. It must be worth it at the end of the day, or else you wouldn't have picked up and come all the way along to the space center. So just work hard and keep that big picture in focus.
Right. Keep going. Philip, any advice, wisdom you have at this point that you'd highlight?
And I think the biggest thing that I can offer is that keep in mind that it's not necessarily going to be an easy road. You're not just going to be able to walk down it and not have to do anything. You're going to have to be proactive and seek out different opportunities. And if you see an opportunity, grab it and go for it. Don't let it pass you by. There will be people along the way who throw in roadblocks to make it difficult, but that's okay and that's to be expected, and you're going to learn something from it. But you will get over those roadblocks. Just never not take an opportunity. If something comes along that you think will better you or your career or your group or your organization or the agency, go for it. And it'll all work out in the end, and you'll see the bigger picture and how it worked together as you go down that road.
Both of you have mentioned in your answers getting beyond obstacles and also dealing with skeptics that an agency needs to deal with. How do you deal with getting around obstacles? Is it just perseverance, or is it a mindset?
And I think for me personally, a lot of it's perseverance, because sometimes the obstacle, it seems like it's unsurmountable, but you just keep trying at it, and you try and work it from different ways and change your thinking on it, because sometimes it's not really an obstacle, you're just thinking incorrectly about it. And so if you change your viewpoint, you can see where it's coming from and find a better way around it. And then talk to your mentors. Most of my obstacles that I thought were unattainable and unable to be passed, by talking to my various mentors, I was able to see beyond it and then eventually move over the obstacle. So don't be afraid to gain information from others and ask questions.
Sometimes the biggest obstacle is myself, and if you make a mistake or you feel like you can't do something, just admit it and try and learn from it and move on. And sometimes you have to break that engineering mentality that you have, where you don't have this personable, emotional side, and regroup with your team and say, hey, what's going on with our dynamics here as a team, or talk things out. And sometimes that's all you really need, is to just break that constant train of thought.
Before I go to my final question, any questions here from the folks? Yeah.
And both of you obviously are real go-getters, if you will, and you're very extroverted, and you identify an opportunity and you go after it, and you mentioned before. As we all know, not everybody here at NASA, including young people, are like that, and they may need to be spurred somehow, or their focus is very micro, and they don't think big picture, but they're very, very good and very, very focused on the small task that fits into the others. To Steve's point earlier, Steve's question, what kind of tips would you give senior leadership, or Steve, for example, in getting to those people, and pulling them in and having them open up and understand what role they could play?
Well, I think you need the whole gamut of personalities and traits. If someone is an introvert or enjoys just focusing on being the master of their system, we need that, right? So just as the supervisor or the mentor, maybe make them realize that, hey, do you realize that you are this way? But make it a strength, make it something that they can own, and maybe provide them projects that only work on one system and being the expert in that system. That's my best answer I can give. How about you?
And Annie, I would agree with that. You're always going to find people who want to just stay and be that expert, like you mentioned. And it's important to identify that, and because they're not going to be doing their optimal work if you're always trying to make them see the larger picture. And if their optimal work is focusing, encourage it and see if they're interested in also focusing on their system. So they may become the expert, and let them know that they are the critical expert on that system, and that people look to them for their leadership and understanding how it goes, and that can be reward enough. I have several friends that are very similar to that, and it's rewarding for them to be considered the system expert on that, and they're the go-to person if anyone has a question about it. And then eventually they'll want to look at another system and try and become an expert on that too. It's just how they work, and so I would cultivate that and just try and identify it early on.
Very good ideas there. Any other questions, or? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sort of relating to that, you talk about how you can build a network, and you use people's strengths and or weaknesses to the situations that suit them best. Well, when you move on, how do you sort of keep your network traveling with you, or do you sort of remove yourself from it and move on, or how do you have that set up to sort of sustain itself once you have gone?
Yeah, how do you sustain your network as you go into all these different directions?
And I think that process is a lot easier today with all the different forms of communication we have. But I've moved around to several different places. I worked in another government agency as an intern before I came to NASA. And I still talk to those people today, and they still provide me wonderful insights. And so I think it's just keeping in touch on a regular basis. Even if it's only once every 6 months you send an email to say, hello, how you doing? Just want to give you an update. I'm doing this now. Hope everything's great with you. I found out more often than not, they're happy to get a response and they usually reply, let you know what you're doing. And you keep that communication lane open. And so I've just noticed the network kind of moves with you when you do that. But you have to be proactive and be the one that initiates that communication if you really want to keep that network strong and moving along with you as you go.
Yeah, I definitely send emails if something just even reminds me of someone somewhere that I haven't talked to in a while, or website that I'm on. I send it to them and I'm like, hey, I thought about you when I saw this. Hope you're doing well. You know, you just have to keep them in mind. Try lunches if you're at the same location still. Even if they can't meet up for lunch, at least they know you were thinking of them. That's why communication today is awesome. You have so many options, so there's very little excuses, unfortunately.
Yeah, the communication, the connections are amazing. Before I go into my question, do you have a question for each other? You don't have to, but didn't think about that, but guess not. Well, let me go to, as we close, what would you say to NASA senior leadership or NASA leadership in general in terms of what to keep in mind, you know, at the top in terms of making this a great place to work, or making this a place that young professionals would want to come to, or making this a place of learning? What would you share with people?
I've definitely noticed since I've been here the past several years, there has been a change in the way senior management or the people up at headquarters react to young people. They're so interested in making this change for them that it really almost sometimes is in the young professionals' court. And I think that's why we see this uprising, if you will, of all of these youthful groups that are happening across the agency. And for senior leaders up at headquarters, I had the opportunity to be in the NASA First program and got to spend some time up there with them, and the passion and the fight that they put every day for this agency really tore down some misconceptions that I had for headquarters, because there's a lot of rumors about headquarters, and it's this place that you know, you don't want to be at, you don't know what happens there. But when you are there watching it and seeing the day-to-day, you realize that this is almost everything for these people. It really is their drive and their focus. And seeing that, I get to come back and be like, hey, those people up there are the real deal. You know, there really is the passion and the drive. And that for me was very helpful to pass on to a lot of people down here. And I'm very pleased the way that they just interact with us. I mean, they're very informal and want to get to know us, and vice versa. So I definitely see walls being broke down all the time compared to what it was just a few years ago.
So yeah, keep the passion going, make sure people see that, and also keep the gains going in terms of that interest. Philip, what about you? Any advice?
Just to add on to what Annie, to add on to what Annie said, like it's a lot of breaking down walls. I first started at the Dryden Flight Research Center in California, which does mainly aeronautics research. They don't really do a ton of space research, a little bit, but their primary focus is aeronautics. And it's amazing, when I went to JSC, people kind of knew that Dryden existed and they were basically an aeronautics center, but not much beyond that. And so I would say the biggest advice I can give to senior leadership is to encourage and cultivate the cross-pollination of understanding between the centers. Every center has their specialty and does something amazingly well, and that's why they are a center for NASA. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every other center fully understands that philosophy. And so, you know, making sure that you're integrating as much as possible and being able to get people together from various centers to learn what they do and break down those walls that Annie was talking about between the centers will make us a stronger agency overall, and especially if you try and integrate the workforce as well, from all the way from early to late careers together and get them interacting, and then you get the cross-center interaction. You've just made a really strong, cohesive bond across the entire agency. to get us working as one agency and one organization. And I think we already are a great place to work, and that's evidenced by the employee viewpoint survey that came out last year, and I'm sure everyone's seen it, that we are one of the greatest places to work in the government, and I think we'll continue to be so.
All righty. Well, let me thank both Annie and Philip. Philip, I appreciate you for connecting with us from Moscow in your after hours. It's been a great week here at Kennedy. I'm very appreciative of the Kennedy Space Center leadership under Bob Cabana for hosting this and doing such a great job. I want to thank Lisa Malone for getting the great support from the Public Affairs Office and the great work of NASA TV, and also the support of Michael Bell here for the Chief Knowledge Officer. And I also want to thank Louis Peach for producing this series. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you keep learning and keep moving out. So thank you.